Bonus episode, a tribute to dads. Welcome to Reviving Your Soul, where Christians are finding the courage to embrace their faith in all aspects of their lives so they can stop being bored or overwhelmed and begin to live the life in fulfillment and in peace that God created them for. I'm your host, Vanna Johnson. Let's get started. We all have them in our lives. They come in all shapes and sizes, and they fill many roles. They answer to many names: Dad, Father, Pops, Pots, Pa, Papa, Daddy. The list goes on. Today, I would like to pay tribute to some of the dads in my life, especially my dad, my husband, and my son. My dad is one of those people who never met a stranger. I grew up believing that everyone in the world knew my dad because everywhere we went, people knew him by name and would stop and talk to him. It wasn't until years later that I would learn that my world was really very small and that everywhere really only amounted to people in about 100-mile radius around the very small rural town that we lived in. But somehow, knowing that even today doesn't take away from that awe of that belief that everyone in the world knew my dad. Dad traveled a lot when I was young, and my memories of our time together is somewhat limited. As life would have it, my parents divorced when I was around 10 or 11 years old. Our lives were such that we didn't see each other often and didn't know each other well. Regardless, he was always generous with us kids, and when we were together, and I believe he did his best to make sure we were taken care of. He just wasn't around much. As a result, I didn't really get to know him until I was in high school. In fact, I didn't know until I was much older that he had actually started school and seminary when he was young. I love the image of that younger version of him wanting to serve the Lord so badly that he was willing to hitchhike the nearly 1,000 miles one way to get the education he needed to become a minister. He didn't finish schooling for that, for whatever reason. Probably some of the same reasons that so many of us get called off of our purpose. And he ended up going into the service. He married my mom after his return from the service, and after trying on some different hats, he eventually became an auctioneer. I loved listening to him call, and I still to this day stand by my belief that he is the best darn auctioneer that ever lived. As stories tend to do, Dad's story gets complicated, and I think it's fair to say that there are a lot of years in there where he didn't live the life of a preacher. The thing about little girls, and not so little girls, is that we always love our daddy. No matter how absent they are, no matter how far they stray, they are our dad. I'm so grateful that Dad found his way back to the Lord, and I can say that he truly has had a huge impact on my journey to help Christians embrace their faith. His mission is to make sure that everyone in his life knows the Lord and is doing what they need to do so that they can spend eternity in heaven. I really love that even before I had decided on helping Christians live in integrity with their values, and before Dad even knew what I did, he was a key player in getting my first speaking gig, giving the message at Cowboy Church at the local Heritage Festival. That truly was the first step in this journey for me. I've been blessed to have a dad who has supported me and believed in me no matter what my latest crazy idea was. Every girl should have someone like that in her life. What strikes me as I wrote this and as I say this is that I've been blessed with two men like that in my life. My husband came into my world when my son was just one. He really is an amazing person and was, without a doubt, a bona fide answer to my prayers. It's funny because when I retired after 30 years in the housing finance industry and became a health coach, he had no idea what that meant. And to this day, he doesn't really understand what I do, but he supports me and he believes in me anyway. My husband had two girls when we were married back 30-some years ago, so we got that full blended family experience. And honestly, I can't imagine sharing those joys and frustrations with anyone else. I'd venture to say that he is the kindest, most patient person God ever created, and I'm blessed to spend my life with him. What surprises me is that as wonderful as he was as a father, he's even better as a grandfather. He loves those kids, and each of them worship him. As a health coach, I have to challenge him on some of the choices he makes for the kids, but I reluctantly accept the fact that a candy bar or an ice cream cone on occasion probably won't kill them. Besides, it's Grandpa's job to spoil his grandkids, right? I'm smiling as I recall that I had one grandpa that literally fed us sugar by a teaspoon, and the other one always had a box of Tootsie Rolls on hand for us grandkids. I'd like to think I turned out okay. And besides, I have some really great memories of both of those men and the way that they snuck around giving us our treats when no one was watching, especially Grandma. My sugar addiction is almost totally unnoticeable to the untrained eye, anyway. The last dad I want to mention today is my son. He's had some challenges to overcome in life. He took them on, one at a time, and allowed them to mold him into a person who wants to leave the world a better place than the one he came into. He is truly one of the most caring and loving dads I know. I'm not sure why I should be surprised, given the men that he had to model, but sometimes I am. He can gently call me out, unlike no one else in the world. He truly keeps me on track. I find that when I struggle with a decision that is one of those where my husband likely isn't going to have an opinion, I will either ask my son, or at least I'll wonder to myself, I wonder what Ty would think. You know, you did something right when you can turn to your child as a trusted advisor. There are millions of dads out there, and each one has qualities that make them special. What I love is the fact that some of the best examples of great dads are the men in our lives who aren't our dads at all. Growing up in a small town in the 60s and 70s, my siblings and I spent a lot of time with family, and we got to know our uncles pretty well. I have several who I know would have stepped up and virtually done anything in their power had I asked them to back when I was growing up and getting established in life. They filled in some of the gaps in my life and taught me how to love, laugh, have fun, but mostly how to embrace life in a day-to-day activities. Growing up, we didn't have a lot, but you couldn't tell it by the joy we experienced when our families got together. The bottom line is, none of the men in my life are perfect. Not a one is likely to win an award for the life they live or the work they do. But those of us whose lives they touch love them despite their weaknesses or flaws. We wouldn't change a thing about them, and I, for one, feel very blessed to have them in my life. So for all the dads listening, I just want to thank you. Thank you for loving your family and the people that God placed in your path. Thank you for caring about your community. Keep loving and supporting the young people in your lives. You don't have to do it perfectly. Just do it. Dad, I especially want to thank you for believing in me. Your belief has helped empower me to help others believe in themselves. I help them realize that they too can become better and better if they choose to do so. I love your mission and I love your soul. Thanks for listening and have an amazing Father's Day.